Good evening, Lynette. I'm doing a test. Is the Zoom? Great. We're at 7 o'clock. I'd like to call this meeting to order. This is the Planning and Transportation Commission regular meeting of November 17th, 2025. On the agenda, number 1, we just did. Number 2, there are no teleconferencing requests from commissioners tonight. So we will go on to agenda item 3, which is the Pledge of Allegiance. Please join me. I pledge allegiance to the flag in the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Hi, Richa. Thank you for the roll call.
Chair Clements.
Here.
Vice Chair Bundy.
Here.
Commissioner Anand.
Here.
Commissioner Canisti.
Here.
Commissioner Tapias.
Here.
Thank you. We're going on to item 5. Actually, before that is item 5 is public comment on the agenda. So we'll just assume that's an item 6. So let's do it in reverse order. Public comment is limited to items that are not on tonight's agenda. The commission may briefly respond to statements made or questions posed as allowed by the Brown Act, which is California Government Code Section 54954.2. However, the Commission's general policy is to refer items to staff for attention or to have a matter placed on a future Commission agenda for a more comprehensive action or a report. If you'd like to make a public comment on an item tonight that's not on the agenda, there are speaker cards in the rear. Please fill it out if you're in chambers, and I can call you up. If you are on Zoom or would like to join, the Zoom meeting number is showing on the screen. It is Zoom number 886-3546-7439, or you can call 616-900-9128 on the phone. When you get into the meeting, if you're online, you can raise your hand by clicking reactions and then raise hand icon. If you're on the phone, you can press *9, and then when you get called on, a *mute to unmute. First, for people who are present physically, we did get a speaker note from Zanovi, sorry. Can you pronounce your last name when you come on up? Zanovi? Yes, and your last name? Please, come on up to the speaker, or to the podium. Welcome. Good evening, and you have 2 minutes.
Okay, so as I said in my letter, I understand that you may be under pressure to grant the extension of all the permits.
Oh, I'm sorry. Is this about tonight's item?
That's right.
On 808 Alameda? Actually, if you can hold your comment until that item, then we can hear you at that time. This is for public comment that is something other than that, other than tonight's agenda. Thank you so much for coming, and we'll talk to you in a few minutes. Is there anyone else in chambers who would like to make a public comment on something not on the agenda tonight? Okay. Is there anyone, Lynette, who is on Zoom who is raising their hand and would like to make a comment?
There are no hands raised.
Okay. We can give it another 30 seconds or so in case someone changes their mind on Zoom. And tonight's public hearing, FYI, is item 8A. So I will keep that for item 8A. Lynette, has anyone raised their hand?
There are none.
Okay. Then I need a motion from a commissioner to close public comment.
I move to close public comments.
Great, and a second?
I second that.
Thank you. Roll call, please.
Chair Clements.
Yes.
Vice Chair Bundy.
Yes.
Commissioner Canisti.
Yes.
Commissioner Tapias.
Yes.
And Commissioner Anand.
Yes.
Great. Going back to the approval of minutes from the November 3rd Planning and Transportation Commission meeting. I'm sorry that I could not attend. I watched a bunch of the video and wanted to see if any of the commissioners who were present wanted to make any corrections or clarifications. No? Okay, great. Then I need a motion to approve the minutes.
I move to approve the November 3rd minutes.
Thank you. And a second?
I second.
Thank you. Roll call, please.
Chair Clements,
Yes.
Vice Chair Bundy,
Yes.
Commissioner Anand,
Yes.
Commissioner Caniesti,
Yes.
and Commissioner Tapia.
Yes.
Great. So now we are on to item 7A, which is new business. We are going to receive a presentation from the City County Association of Governments for San Mateo County, also known as CCAG, welcome, and the San Mateo County Transportation Authority, which is SMCTA, and obtain or give feedback to the countywide transportation plan update. Welcome.
Thank you so much, and good evening. Thank you, Chair Clements and Commissioners. Thank you for the opportunity to be here tonight. I'm Kaki Chung. I'm the Deputy Director for CCAG, the City and County Association of Governments for San Mateo County. I'm excited to be here tonight to share information with you on the countywide transportation plan update. And I have a slide, so there we go. It is a joint effort between CCAG and also the San Mateo County Transportation Authority. And the purpose of the plan is to share a little bit about how folks are currently moving in the county and talk about what are some of the trends and how we're looking forward to 25 years from now. What are some of the things that we should be doing to encourage different modes of travel and et cetera. So before we dive into the major part of the presentation, I just want to give a brief overview of our two agencies. So I represent CCAG. It's a collaborative forum where all the member jurisdictions, basically a representative from each city and town, as well as the county, have a seat on the board. And our mission is to pursue a safe, equitable, accessible, and multimodal transportation network. And then we also administer federal funding as well as regional and local funding. Our partner on this project is the San Mateo County TA. They manage the Measures A and W, and they also make transportation investments throughout the county. So a little bit about the Countywide Transportation Plan, or CTP for short. Basically, it's a long-term vision for how we, the residents and visitors, get around in the county, whether it's through driving, biking, walking, or using transit. It guides how our two agencies prioritize our funding, as well as plan for future improvements, including how local and regional projects move forward. And for the city of San Carlos, it could mean, improvement on El Camino Real, 192, or, improvements at the Caltrain stations right outside of here, and wanting to make sure that those reflect your residents' needs. We adopted the last plan back in 2017. It is a long-term vision, and using the CTP as a guiding framework, the county has since developed a lot of other plans that guides our travel, and whether it's the Samtrans Reimagine Samtrans effort, our active transportation plan, Caltrain's business plan, or other plans related to housing needs. So what has changed since the last plan update? We now have 22 miles of operational express lane on Highway 101. It was also very exciting that Caltrain has electrified. And then in terms of the Smart Corridor project, it's a technological project. Basically, we utilize technology to help motorists avoid incident site, and it's also a tool that local agencies use to manage recurring and non-recurring congestion. And what you see on Holly, those changeable message signs, it's a byproduct of that project. And we've been working on the northern city segments in Brisbane and Brisbane, Daly City, so northern part of the county. And I think what's not shown on here is that overall, our two agencies and as a county as a whole, we have invested a lot more in active transportation. Putting a lot more funding towards bike and ped projects. So with this new plan update, we're currently in the process of going out and seeking public input. We want to get insights on how we should be defining our vision and goals for the next 25 years. And with the feedback that we receive around spring or summer timeframe, we will actually be generating a list of projects, and those projects will feed into this plan in order to apply for federal funding or, any projects would need to be identified in the plan in order to qualify. So we wanted to make sure that your feedback is being captured and make sure that local priority projects are included. So I think, the outcomes that we want to focus on in this update, anticipating that things are changing. I think if anything we've learned since the pandemic is that we need to be adaptable and be flexible. So we want to identify pilot programs that we could do at a smaller scale and be more nimble and be able to launch them county-wide. We want to establish a shared definition of equity, what it means. We also want to position San Mateo County and the local jurisdictions in a way that we will be able to get additional funding to bring into the county. And of course, it's important to set a clear list of metrics where we could measure our progress. But I think most importantly, we wanted this plan to be usable and practical for jurisdictions, our community organizations, and our partners. So the next series of slides focus on current trends that we've identified in most recent public engagement efforts, and we're utilizing that to build on this next plan update. And these are lists of recent studies that were done that we are utilizing the feedback that we get from those engagement efforts to inform the observations that we're presenting in front of you tonight. So we've engaged over 30,000 county residents, whether it's through an in-person or online channel or social media platforms. Most of these outreach has been done in multiple different languages, and we've targeted advocacy groups, businesses, and local jurisdictions. So here are some of the trends that we are seeing. So from a commuting perspective, I think most of us are not surprised, but the county residents are still heavily reliant on cars. About 70% of our workers drive alone, whether it's crossing city to go to another city for work or inter-county travel, which makes regional coordination a really essential part of what we do. What you're not seeing on the slide is that actually over half of the trips are under 3 miles. So, which means we have a lot of opportunity to explore different options for those shorter trips. And on this slide, I just want to point you to the numbers that are on the left-hand side. The blue numbers represent how our residents are currently traveling, the mode that they use. And the numbers on the orange is how they would like to travel if conditions are improved. I think in general, that's no perfect match. I wish there are. But what we want to take away from this slide is actually that a lot of people wish that they could take train or bus to get to work, but they end up using driving as their main mode right now. From a roadway network perspective, 101 and 280 are our primary routes, and 92 and El Camino Real are key connecting corridors. The primary concerns that we're hearing is traffic congestion. Whether you live on the bay side or the coast side, that is a top concern. And for the coast side, during weekends, they worry about emergency access. And so we have identified a lot of locations for improvement. For example, 101-92 interchange are undergoing construction for some of the short-term improvements right now. And El Camino Real, there's a lot of excitement on that, and we'll talk a little bit about that. But I think in general, folks feel like driving, safety is also the other top issue, whether it's from speeding or driver distractions. Those tend to be key concerns. From the transit side, most of the primary transit providers are along the bay: Caltrain, Samtrans, and BART. And I think just to give some numbers and put that in perspective, Samtrans sees an annual boarding of 10 million, and BART and Caltrain contribute about 2 to 3 million annually from a boarding perspective. You see Samtran buses running on El Camino Real, and Caltrain. So all those transit services provide you key connections throughout the whole region and serving your residents and staff working and visitors that are here. The unfortunate thing from the pandemic is that BART and Caltrain ridership has just not recovered. It's around 50 to 70% from pre-pandemic level. From Samtrans side, they've actually completely rebounded. They are now back to 100% of pre-pandemic level. The thing is that for shuttles that you sometimes see with the commute.org on there that we fund, those ridership has just not climbed back to 2019 level due to different, whether stay at work from home or different commute patterns. So our agencies right now are really looking at ways where we can modernize and making sure that those commute shuttles would work for our residents. But I think overall, what we're hearing from a transit perspective is that people want reliable and frequent service, and they want the first and last mile to be addressed. Being able to get to the transit station. Once I get to the destination, how do I get around? And how can we do that in an affordable manner? From an active transportation standpoint, most of the walking and biking facilities are local, but our agencies have been partnering with local jurisdictions to make sure that we could create a low stress and countywide backbone network that really connect between jurisdictions. And there's no, a resident is not going to care that I'm now in a different city. They just want facilities that work for them. So we're really trying to focus on those regional routes and providing safer crossing, whether it's through across 101, whether it's on El Camino Real, better lighting, more benches, just all those amenities that make biking and walking attractive. So looking ahead to 2050, there are a lot of other efforts that are currently underway that would influence the landscape of transportation. The Samtrans is currently leading the Grand Boulevard Initiative. They're looking at ways to modernize El Camino Real for the whole segment of the county. Our agency, CCAT's been will be implementing a lot of Vision Zero local road and safety plan. And then, as I mentioned, the 10192 improvements are ongoing, and the TA has the 101 Corridor Connect project, where they're trying to make improvements within a mile of 101 to get people back and forth safely. But I think we are not naive. We understand that there are a lot of external factors that are at play and influence our future travel conditions, whether it's e-devices like e-bikes, that's certainly a huge topic recently, and shared micromobility. Autonomous vehicle, how that will influence our future. I see Waymo vehicles driving up and down El Camino Real quite frequently now. Climate change, we have an aging population. The transit partners have a funding deficit. So all those factors are at play and influence our future travel conditions. So we wanted to hear from you, and that's why we're here tonight, to understand from your perspective, what's working well in the transportation system today. What are some of the challenges that you think are critical and need to be solved in the county? Are there specific neighborhoods or populations that you feel like are not being served well? And the last question is, if you have a magic wand, what is the one transportation project you would like to see implemented? So I'll turn it over to you. We'll look forward to hearing your comments, and we'll be taking your feedback, and we'll be coming to, coming back in late spring with the project list. So, and that concludes my presentation. Thank you.
Thank you, Kaki. We appreciate it. Let's start out with any commissioner clarifications or questions that you've got, and then we can work into answering these questions. The questions posed to us. Does anyone have any clarifications or wonderings?
Yeah, I have one question, Kathy.
Commissioner Kennedy?
You mentioned CCAG and federal funding and also revenue from, I guess, tax sources. Just curious, the annual budget for CCAG to do these kinds of improvements, do you have any idea what that is?
Our annual budget is about 30 million or so, but we have a lot of funding that we pass through our local jurisdictions. For example, we have Measure M, which is the $10 annual vehicle registration fee, and half of that we distribute to our local partners for whether it's pavement improvement project, traffic congestion relief project, or stormwater. A lot of local jurisdictions use it for trash, street sweeping or trash pickup. So a lot of our budget is also passed through. But for example, we have the upcoming One Bay Area grant where we're anticipating about $30 million that we'll be distributing to local partners for projects that's coming up in the next 4 years. We'll have bike path funding that we work with your city staff on. For example, we most recently funded improvements on San Carlos Avenue, like closer to Carmel High. So yeah, we get funding and then we give them back out to the community.
And just one follow-up. In terms of the budget allocated to San Carlos, of that 30 million, how much is it? This is countywide, 30 million, correct?
That's correct. And I don't have the San Carlos specific numbers.
Okay, no, that's fine.
But I'm happy to follow up with staff and provide that for you.
Well, that gives me an idea. Thank you.
Commissioner Bundy, Vice Chair Bundy? No. Okay. Sorry. Commissioner Anand, any questions?
Yes, I have one question. Thank you for the presentation. My question is about education in the community because it's a county-wide initiative, so there will be different laws as you cross the city lines, helmets and multimodal transportation, what goes on the sidewalk, what goes on the road, all of that. How the bike lanes change suddenly, like we don't want bike riders to get startled just moving from one city to another and all of that. So any elements of community education in this plan or on the horizon?
And not specifically in this plan per se, but we do fund the County Office of Education. So basically we fund the Safe Routes to School program, and they go out to a lot of the schools as well as school districts and provide provide on-the-ground training for the students. So that's one way that we do it. Another way is that we gave funding to Commute.org, and they've actually partnered with Silicon Valley Bike Coalition, and they're doing a lot of bike rodeo or league certified cyclist training. And I understand that they were looking for sites, for a few months ago to host these type of trainings. So we do partner with outside organizations to work on those efforts. So those are some of the examples.
Thank you.
Commissioner Tapias, any questions?
Yeah, just one. Thank you for the presentation. I'm wondering, I got curious about the first and last mile issue you talked about of getting to and from public transportation as being one of the concerns that you heard. What provisions or focus areas in the plan do you have to kind of tease out opportunities for incorporating solutions around the first and last mile in the plan?
Yeah, so we have most recently, or we've actually been working on a few years on share micromobility, basically bike share and scooter share. We started by developing a plan to see what areas within the county would be best suited for these share mobility option. And we found that, for example, in the northern part of the county, Daly City and Colma, where they're close to BART stations. So we've actually about a month ago expanded, and they now have some bike share stations in Daly City. So that's one way that we were trying to address the first and last mile. We've also done a autonomous vehicle feasibility plan about a year and a half or so ago. And our next step is that we want to identify some locations where that would be most optimal. And we're looking at different population where we could target. For example, in the morning, sometimes there are a lot of school traffic going to schools, and kids are probably more open to trying out new technology. So can we have a school autonomous vehicle route that serve students and family in getting their kids to and from schools, so parents don't have to drive? And so we're looking at multiple ways to see how we could better address some of these first and last mile. And maybe there are opportunities to get folks from if they live in the White Oaks neighborhood, or getting them to the train station instead of driving and parking at the Caltrain lot. So we're looking at different options, but certainly, open to other ideas that the community have, and making sure that whatever we propose, works for them.
I had one question, and then I think we'll go to any public comments if people would like to give input on this, and then we can come back to the commissioners for their thoughts. Can you talk a little bit more about the One Bay Area grant? You said there was going to be $30 million. Is that amount known? Is it somehow set aside for councils of governments locally? And then what kinds of projects might be funded out of that? And that's coming from you all. So you apply to MTC ABAG for the funds, and then you hold your own competition, if you will, for projects. What does that look like?
Yeah, so the next cycle will be coming out in early spring. So MTC hasn't given us the specific amount yet, but we're anticipating a county-wide target that's around $30 million. And that represents about 120% of what we would get. So what we do is we go out and call for projects from all the jurisdictions. We review those projects, evaluate them, and then we submit 120% of our target. MTC is the one that eventually decide what projects get funded. So we would get probably about 100% of what we want. So there are some projects that may not make it after the regional process, but that is during the spring. And typically we fund bike. In the last round, in OBAG 3, we funded mostly bike pit projects that are within a priority development area or next to transit. So we've been working very closely with the Public Works team, and we've been informing them as we go along to make sure that they know when the call for project cycle would come out, and we're working closely with them on how much we should set aside as the maximum grant amount, minimum grant amount. So they are apprised all along the way. So yeah, in the spring timeframe, it's when we anticipate conducting this call for project.
Just a follow-up question. I think I remember the last OBAG round, quite a bit of money went for highway improvements, if I'm remembering correctly, and maybe that was the active transportation, the SMART on 101, the SMART delivery or something. But that is a state highway, right? And so there are a lot of agencies involved in transportation. Can you just clarify a little bit? So bike ped would be local routes, or maybe county roads, right? But does some OBAG money also go towards state roads like Highway 101?
Yeah, so it goes to fund projects that are of regional significance, because those tend to do better in terms of when MTC looks at it from a regional perspective. I know that we set aside funding, or we funded like Peninsula Avenue, I think in San Mateo, but that project didn't, happen. So we also funded mobility hub at the 101-92 interchange area. So there were a whole wide variety, and also El Camino Real in Colma, they were doing some work there, so they got some funding. So it's projects that we're able to fund across the county. And it doesn't, there isn't necessarily a specific type, because
I see.
in Plan Bay area, there are a lot of different projects that would fall into the eligible category.
Okay, and do some score better than others?
Yes. Yeah.
What kinds?
I think it depends. Last cycle, it's active transportation projects.
More active?
Yeah.
Yeah, thank you. Great. Well, now I'll turn it over to the public. If anyone would like to come up and make a public comment on this presentation. We were on item 7A. This is the CCAG and SMCTA presentation on the countywide transportation plan. So if anyone's here and would like to speak, you can fill out a speaker card or you can raise your hand and I can recognize you. If you're on the Zoom meeting, the information is on the screen. The Zoom meeting number is 886-3546-7439, or you can dial the meeting on the phone at 669-900-9128. Then to raise your hand on the Zoom call, you click reactions and then raise hand. If you're on the phone, you can press *9. Would anyone in chambers like to make a public comment on this item? Okay. Seeing none. Lynette, online, is there anyone with their hand raised for item 7A?
There are no hands raised.
Okay. Let's give it another half a minute or so in case someone changes their mind on the Zoom call. Any brave souls putting their hands up now?
There are none.
Okay, thanks. Then I need a motion from the commissioners to close public comment.
I move to close public comment.
Thanks, in a second.
I second.
Chair Clements,
Yes.
Vice Chair Bundy,
Yes.
Commissioner Anand,
Yes.
Commissioner Caniesti,
Yes.
Commissioner Tapia, yes.
Yes.
Thank you. If we can go back to the slide of the questions that they would like to have answered. I would welcome any commissioner who would like to start. No one wanting to start. Commissioner Caniesti, would you like to start?
Yes, Kathy, I had a question. You mentioned autonomous vehicles in underserved areas or underserved populations. One of the comments I actually got from some local residents was using autonomous vehicles for elderly, and that's a big thing that could really help in the future. I was wondering what plans, if any, are you looking at that? I mean, and there's a lot of issues pertaining to that. One is acceptance by elderly, will they even get into them? But the other is, like parking, docking stations and disruption and so forth. But in terms of the overall plan, autonomous vehicles and serving the elderly, can you tell me what you're doing in looking at that specific issue?
Yeah, so we are in the process of applying some Caltrans funding to see, to develop a plan and look at each jurisdictions in the county specifically to see what route and what population we might be able to serve using AV. So I think certainly that, in addition to commuters, the younger population, seniors is definitely one of the group we would be looking at, and with the aging population. So I think it's a task to be tackled, and our goal from that plan is to identify some pilot sites that we could actually do some project and see how well it will perform. Currently, for a while, they were having the AV shuttle serving the Treasure Island, but that project had ended. For example, in Contra Costa County, they had a pilot serving their business ranch area. So we hope that we could identify some pilot project at the end of this planning effort to be able to do.
Okay, any idea when you might do that?
So the grant, it's due next week, actually, no, this Friday. So we will hear in probably in the spring or summer timeframe. So if it all goes well, then we would kickstart the project around this time next year. Yeah. But duly noted about the senior population being a potential population that AV could serve. Yeah.
Yeah, I was going to say, you can state your question in the form of a statement, which is that that would be of interest as an underserved population, and AV might be an interesting idea. Great. Vice Chair Bundy?
Sure. So I'm probably not the best person to say what works across all modes, but I certainly use Caltrain quite a bit and appreciate its reliability. And I think as far as key challenges, obviously funding is a significant challenge as we try to bring back from COVID. I think the more we can make the non-vehicular routes reliable, accessible, the more we will be able to relieve the burdens on the vehicle systems. As far as underserved areas, I know that from experience that it can be really hard getting folks to show up for workshops and meetings. You can put $40,000 into a meeting and 10 people show up, and so the payoff there isn't always great. We're not getting as much input from those populations as we probably need. So it would encourage things like, door-to-door knocking in MTC equity priority areas, or going to bus stops where there appear to be a lot of folks that are, boarding buses at those locations, to really hear from those communities as to what they need. I certainly can't speak to that. And then future needs, last mile projects, equity serving Bay Trail segments or other equity serving segments, and then projects addressing the high injury network would be a high priority for me. That's what I've got.
Thank you. Excellent.
And I just want to, if I may,
Please.
Chair Clements, we are going out to different CBOs and also engaging them in the same community planning, trying to get their input. But it is certainly quite challenging sometimes to get the public to show up. That's why we go to where they are and hopefully get more input that way.
That's great. Thanks so much.
Thanks. Commissioner Anand?
What works currently, I would say it's been very encouraging to see more bike lanes come up and different cities taking that conscious initiative to do that. Our younger population is not only tech-friendly, they're also environment-friendly, and they are choosing to go an alternate way. So it is encouraging to see the infrastructure trying to keep up with that. In terms of the most critical transportation challenges, I can speak to San Carlos. Here, our biggest challenge, I feel, is the school traffic, which just becomes like a bottleneck for so many people who are not even ferrying kids to school and just trying to get to work. So it just kind of snowballs into this really big, massive traffic jam, especially in the morning. So anything that can be done to relieve some pressure on the schools, that would be incredibly helpful to every family, I feel, in one way or another. There are certain hot pockets in every city where there are 2 or 3 schools together at, within like less than half a mile radius, and those, I would love to see some pilot projects there to just see how that eases the congestion. In terms of specific neighborhoods and populations, 3, people with special needs, the elderly, which we already spoke about, and children who are able to ride on their own. And I think these 3 populations would greatly benefit. The other thing that I would like to point out is that I've been hearing that a lot of families today, because of the state of the economy, are actually defaulting on car payments, which actually shows how dire the need is for them, how financially strapped they are, because in the United States, the last thing people let go is their car because of these transportation challenges. So if we can tap into certain neighborhoods it's some economically disadvantaged neighborhoods, that would be a very big relief to these families. If I had a magic wand, I would totally do the last mile project, because it happens with me, and I'm sure a lot of people as well. When you need to go to, let's say, Hillsdale, if I'm driving to San Carlos Caltrain station, might as well drive 5 more minutes. So that's always the thought. Like, once your car is out of the house, might as well. So the more last mile connections we have, the less cars come out of the driveways and the garages, and I think that's going to be great. Thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Tapias?
I agree with my colleagues here, especially with the last mile project, but I'll save that for just a second. But first, I wanted to talk about what's currently working in both my experience and people who I talk with around San Carlos. I think that the increased frequency and efficiency of Caltrain has been great, especially for commuting up to San Francisco and kind of, I've been a Caltrain rider on and off for over 30 years, on Peninsula going up and San Francisco coming down to the Peninsula, and I think the Caltrain improvements have been, the recent improvements have been great with the electrification as well as the frequency of options. That's been great. I have also noticed that as a biker around town, I've noticed the bike lanes, and I personally feel safer as a bicycle rider vis-a-vis cars just a few feet from me. So I thank you for that. One of the things that I think is in whatever the plan ends up recommending, the key thing in my mind is the idea of like encouraging change and changing mindset and habits. Like Commissioner Anand just mentioned, it's really easy to just stay in the car or pull the car out of the driveway and just go in the car, right? Versus wait the 17 minutes until the next Caltrain or whatever it might be. I pushed myself recently. I started to commute on Samtrans, which in the 15 years I've lived in the house that I live 2 blocks from a Samtrans stop. I'd never taken it. I take the ECR probably once a week now, and it's fantastic. So it took me a little bit of effort to do it and planning, et cetera, but that idea of changing mindset and changing behavior pattern, I think is gonna be key to anything that you come up with in this plan. And I would love to encourage you all to think about how do you encourage behavior change, because the wonderful things that you're going to come up with are not going to be wonderfully used if people don't change their patterns. And to that point, the last mile project thing is probably part of it. Thank you.
Thank you. Great comments by my colleagues here. I guess I wanted to echo a couple of them. I think Caltrain is a huge asset to our community, and I agree that when I have taken it, it has been on time, there have not been delays, and the reliability is very important. I travel down to Santa Clara County for work, and the reason I don't take Caltrain most of the time, it's the last mile connection on the other side. It's about 1.5 miles to where I work, and they used to have a shuttle going through the downtown in San Jose, and they don't have it anymore. And I think it's because of the changing workforce patterns a little bit, or just the funding ran out somehow. So for me, the the cooperation regionally is important, because obviously we all don't start and stop in San Mateo County. And to that end, years ago when I used to take Caltrain regularly to San Francisco and then try to get to the financial district, it was no fun whatsoever. It was like a 45-minute walk or 40-minute walk. And now it's so much easier because of their improvements on the last mile. So as an example, I agree that focus on bike lanes really helps. And our community, I think, is quite bikeable in the flats. I don't know how bikeable it is in the hills. I live in the flat part of the community. And also have never taken Samtrans, and I want to say the ECR, I've taken it once. I do think, yeah, right, and it's right there. It's where we live near each other, very close to where we live. For me, the barrier is communications about how to pay. Now, I think bus is one of those things that in the old days you had to have, chat cash, or you had to have correct change, and that is generally no longer the case. But I don't know enough to go and try, and I don't have cash necessarily. So I think communications about how easy the payment piece is now, and I think getting more and more easy Bay Area wide, right, supposedly, I think that would help adoption. I do think this idea of autonomous vehicles is interesting certainly for seniors, because folks who are in the hills and get a little bit older may not want to get in the car necessarily. It's not that easy to navigate some of the streets as you get older. And so I think that's an interesting idea, and I actually very much agree with Commissioner Anand. One of our key challenges is it's traffic jams getting to schools, especially elementary school. And then I think by the time the kids are in junior high, more of them are walking, scooting, biking. So it's a little, for me, it was a little bit less of a problem. But that jam going to White Oaks, I still remember it, and I only live a few miles, a few blocks away, but it was just far enough that we didn't both want to walk, my little son and I, right? So it was a little bit challenging. So I do think that that is something to continue to focus on in our community because we're so narrow streets focused throughout the community. And then one other thing, which is just I've seen an increasing number of e-bikes. I've also seen some small, and I'm not sure of the right term, I know the sheriff's presented to us, right, that they're like small motorcycles, but they are not, you know, I'm seeing teens riding them, no helmets, no safety, doubled up, like really unsafe kind of behaviors on the local streets. That was this week's experience. And so anyway, I do think, I don't know, teaming with the sheriffs about messaging around safety is important. And I also just want to say I really support the Vision Zero efforts in our community and all the way up and down the peninsula, because it's an important focus, especially because we're so auto-oriented. People just don't really think first and foremost every pedestrian has right of way. If you ever drive in downtown San Francisco, you're very, very aware that every pedestrian has right of way because they will just walk out in front of you. But that, I don't feel like that's necessarily the thought in the suburbs. So the Vision Zero is especially important in the suburbs, at least to me. Any final thoughts?
We didn't mention the Graham Boulevard, and that is also incredibly important. It's very transformative. I'm sure it's very technically complex, and so, you know, we need to be getting going on that implementation planning and the pre-design work that's necessary to move it along. It's core to some of our transformational visions we have here in San Carlos. So definitely I am supportive of that.
Yeah, it's a good point. We heard an item not that long ago, and with a go-ahead to build housing on a lot of sites, you know, the gaps in the teeth along El Camino, there is every intention for us to continue to try to meet our RHNA goals and do housing, whether it does have ground floor commercial or not, on El Camino, because we've got to get the spaces filled, and we need the housing. So I think more and more folks will have that, you know, benefit along the El Camino of making it more livable, walkable, tree-lined, you know, so that the heat is not quite so bad to encourage folks to walk. I think that's all important. Any other last comments? Great. Did you get what you needed?
Yes. Well, thank you so much, all, for your time and your comments.
Well, thank you. We look forward to hearing more about the plan, seeing the draft, and seeing you again. Thank you for your presentation. Excellent. That brings us to item 8A on tonight's agenda. We are going to have a public hearing on the 808 Alameda de las Pulgas site. The item is the 808 Alameda Townhouse Development. This is a public hearing to consider a 2-year extension of the improved entitlements for the development to construct 87 townhouse units. This site and this project has come before this body and the council several times, and I worked with staff and wanted to make sure that we understand that the action tonight is on the extension of the entitlements only. It's not re-examining the EIR or anything else, any of the several items that we considered originally, and that the action is more how do we think about extensions and how they are warranted. So with that, I wanted to turn it over to Lisa Costa-Sanders for a presentation. Thank you. And thank you in advance also to the many members of the public who are interested on this item and have given written comments, and I'm sure we'll be making oral comments as well.
And apologies, we had one additional public comment, so I just wanted to distribute that to the commissioners. We have an extra copy in the back as well from a member of the public, so thank you.
Thank you very much, Lisa.
Okay, the item before you this evening is a request to extend the entitlement timeline for the approved townhouse development at 808 Alameda. The Planning and Transportation Commission approved the project on May 1st, 2023, and that approval was for a 2-year time period that lasts through May 12th, 2025. State law, specifically SB 2729, automatically extended that timeline 18 months through November 12th, 2026. And the applicant has submitted a request for a 2-year extension that would run through November 12th, 2028. The project site is located along Alameda de las Pulgas. The site is over 11 acres in area and has an average slope of 28.5% that slopes uphill from Alameda. The site zoning and general plan designation is single-family residential. There is an adjacent property referred to as Vista del Grande, and that's currently under review for 65 units on 12.2 acres. So the project was approved for the development of 87 townhome units, and those are in 2, 3, and 4-bedroom units, all with 2-car garages. The project includes 10 deed restricted low-income units, and the developer received the density bonus provisions for additional units above the base project, as well as utilize waivers and concessions. The project is required to dedicate a public street through the site connecting to Coronado Avenue. It also includes internally publicly accessible walking trails, and 3.6 acres of the site will be in a natural state. So here's the site plan. On the right is Alameda de las Pulgas. The project's designed with 17 clusters of attached townhome units that will be for sale. The street does align a bit with the existing roadway, and you see here Public Street A delineated. That street would connect through the Vista del Grande development to Coronado Avenue. The rest of the streets internal would be private streets. And this is an internal view of the townhomes with the garages and the upper level balconies and decks, and this view is looking northwest internal on the site. So the project did include quite a few entitlements that were reviewed and approved by the Planning Commission. That included certification of the final environmental impact report and adoption of mitigation monitoring and reporting program. Conditional use permit as required for the townhome development within the RS6 zoning district. Design review, below market rate housing plan for the 10 low-income units, grading and dirt haul certificate, transportation demand management plan, protected tree removal to remove 147 protected trees on site, and the tentative subdivision map to create the ownership units. So as I indicated, the applicant is requesting a 2-year extension of the entitlements to run through November 12th. If the extension is not granted and the approvals were to expire, the applicant would need to reapply. And the project would then be evaluated under current zoning code, the general plan, state law, and the California Environmental Quality Act. So the applicant does have until November 12th, 2026 to submit for permits under the current timeline without any resubmittals. So let me just walk through. We have received several public comments, and I'll just walk through a few of those comments and our responses. So the first comment relates to the timeliness of the extension request. The code requires an extension applications to be submitted within 1 year of project approval. As the default entitlement period is 1 year under the city code, this is consistent for projects that do not have a longer time period associated with them. As this project received an initial 2-year time effective period, together with that state law 18-month extension, it's staff's opinion that this request should be considered timely submitted as the project entitlements have not expired. The Community Development Director has the authority to interpret the zoning code, and further, the zoning administrator accepted the application and referred the item to the Planning Commission. It's important to consider this code section of light of state pro-housing laws and provide the opportunity to further this project. Another question about slope stability and outdated geotechnical report. The project was evaluated by city reviewers, outside consultants, and through the EIR process prior to its approval in 2023. The applicant is required to submit a design-level geotechnical report prepared by a qualified geologist and incorporate those recommendations into the project design prior to the issuance of a grading permit. There was also concern about what building and fire code would this project apply under. So the project is required to comply with the building and fire codes in effect at the time of building permit submittal. The city recently adopted the 2025 building code that will be effective on January 1st, 2026. The state publishes new codes every 3 years that cities are required to adopt and implement. So we don't give vesting rights to the state building code, to the California building codes. That is all projects at the time of building permit submittal, they go under the codes that are in effect at that time. So there's no grandfathering in or granting of old codes in these situations. There's also concern about, fire code and water on the site. So water for firefighting purposes was deemed adequate at the time the project was approved by Planning Commission. But fire will review this project at building permit submittal. We'll review it to the current fire codes that are also included in those updated building codes. And if there's additional measures that are required, the fire department can absolutely impose those. There we go. There's some concern about the financial valuability of the developer. The private property financial valuability is not something that the city has purview over or looks into. If we had some kind of a development agreement, they were building something on city property, then yes, that is something we would definitely do further research on, but not on private developments. We don't check anybody's background or financial standing. The city does require grading and public improvement bonds to ensure that the site is safe and that work in the public right-of-way can be completed. And then the applicant can further describe any questions that you have in that area. Solar panels, so we do anticipate this project's going to fall under the recently adopted 2025 building code, which does require solar now. So that would be required for this project. The public road. So the fire marshal did approve an alternate means and methods request, and that requires an emergency access road to Coronado Avenue be built before any combustible construction occurs on site. And what we also have is a recorded easement that allows this emergency access road to be constructed on that adjacent Vista Del Grande site. So there's a recorded easement that this developer has rights to build on to connect to Coronado. So that would need to occur before the combustible construction, so any framing that comes out of the ground. There was a request to require a water tower or a storage tank on site, and the water pressure for the homes and fire hydrants, again, was evaluated during the project review prior to the 2023 approval, with the determination that there's sufficient water pressure on site for both the homes and the firefighting purposes. The upper portion of the site is served by a water line that comes down from Dundee Lane, and the lower portion is served from a water line on Alameda. Water pressure would be verified again prior to construction and tested at all the fire hydrants after installation. And the fire marshal, as I indicated, can add additional requirements if the water pressure is deemed insufficient. So as you know, the state has passed numerous laws to expedite the production of housing, and the city really has limited ability to deny housing projects or to reduce the density. If the project expires and the applicant resubmits, the project may be considered exempt from CEQA under AB 130. And so that's a really important distinction to think about. This would eliminate all the mitigation measures that we have that were adopted through the EIR. I outlined those in the staff report. They include several mitigation measures that help shape this project, including additional tree preservation, additional tree planting, implementing the spring tunnel mitigations, no roof decks within 150 feet of a neighboring resident, a new crosswalk with the rapid flashing beacons across Alameda, as well as the requirement to construct emergency vehicle access road across Coronado. So the adjacent developer at Vista Del Grande has requested to apply AB 130 and not undergo full CEQA analysis. And that's currently being evaluated, but I really wanted to bring that to the Commission's attention this evening. That is something that is a reality with our new state laws. Okay, so public notice for the meeting was published in the newspaper November 6th, mailed to all property owners within 500 feet on November 4th, and we've received a few comment letters that you have before you. And here's the motions, should the commission wish to act on the item this evening. I'd be happy to answer any questions. The applicant is also here this evening and would like to give a brief presentation.
Thank you. So why don't we hear from the applicant, and then we'll go to commission questions, then we'll hear from the public, then we'll go back to discussion. Welcome.
Thank you. Good evening, commissioners. My name is Chris Powell. I'm an attorney at Hanson Bridget. I represent Dragonfly Assets, who is the developer of this property at 808 Alameda de las Pulgas. First of all, I'd just like to thank planning staff for being very professional and easy to work with through this process, so thank you for that. As she stated, the project was approved in 2023, extended by AB 2729 to November of 2026. This project has been fully evaluated under CEQA. Nothing significant has changed on the project site or about the project. Just to give you a snapshot of the current status of where the developer is at. Currently, the civil engineer has been engaged and is working on the drainage and grading plans, also working on the stormwater plans, which will be submitted, we expect, in mid to late December of this year. Additionally, the site improvement plans, including public improvements, will be submitted, we hope, in January of 2026. So that is currently underway. A lot of progress has been made. It took some time to coordinate with the neighboring property owner on the configuration of streets that are shared between the sites and other infrastructure. There was a challenging sort of financing period for a while, so it took a while to get the funding in place. But now the developer is making great progress on this project. As I stated, plans are currently being drafted, so looking at the clock with a year left on these permits, there is some concern that time could run out before there's an opportunity to vest them. And so given that they are spending and are going to spend significant funds in the next 6 months to a year, even though they hope they break ground fully planned to before that expiration, just to be cautious here, we're requesting a 2-year extension to these permits in case there is an unforeseen delay, such as government shutdowns, strikes, who knows, lots of crazy things could happen. And building is difficult in California. So just to clarify, two-year extension is the request to November 2028. So I'd like to just briefly address some of the comments that were received. I did actually have an opportunity to speak with the primary commenter, primary in terms of volume, Debbie Baldocci, and we had I feel like a pleasant conversation. I think I addressed a fair amount of her concerns. She still has some remaining concerns, as you've seen in her recent correspondence. But if I could encapsulate, I think, one of the main sort of miscommunications or misunderstandings in the comment letter is that the CEQA process does not really get into engineering level detail. It's not as if one designs a project ready to be built with stamped plans during the CEQA process and then you just go build. I'm sure you're fairly aware, being on this commission, that it's a conceptual level review designed to look at environmental impacts. And then later, the conditions of approval, the mitigation measures require you go through the building permit process where these sort of detailed engineering plans are submitted. I believe a lot of the comments relate to, well, what if things have changed as far as geotechnical risk or fire risk? Well, that's the stage we're at now. For example, public safety on the slopes. Well, we're required under one of the conditions of approval to submit a new geotechnical plan, which will be going through plan check, and the city has engineers on staff who have experience in commenting on these plans, making sure they're safe, making sure public safety is adequately addressed. And another issue, just the expertise of the builders. In this case, the developer is not actually building the building. They're not swinging the hammers. They're not designing the plans. As I said, there's a licensed civil engineer firm who has experience in this city and across the Bay Area under a variety of challenging site conditions, who's working on the project and the plans, and they have that experience. Likewise, the contractors who are now engaged have the requisite experience to complete this project successfully. Let's see here. We already addressed that the project will be built consistent with current building code, not 2019 building code. Just really quickly on fire safety, I think it's important to note that the project, we believe, will actually improve fire safety over existing conditions. It's going to build access roads that go all the way to the top of the hill there. It's going to install fire hydrants, which currently don't exist, along with the access roads. Not only that, but the buildings that are being constructed are of non-combustible building materials, including steel frame buildings and sort of a fiber cement exterior on the buildings. So we believe that the current condition is less safe than the expected condition once the project is built. Also, these are fire sprinklered units, consistent with current building code standards. Just to briefly address the financial standing, I know there's some concerns expressed in the letters that the builder will not complete the project, will stall out, does not have the financial ability, but I'm aware that they do have funding in place. They actually have, the wheels turning. They have their civil working on the plans. They're diligently working on building this project. They're excited about bringing housing to the community. We don't believe that's a valid concern here. As far as bonding, there were some specific bonding requests, but there's already bonding required as part of the grading permit process. We don't think any special additional new bonding is required. Just to summarize here, we don't think that there's any harm to the public that's going to be created by extending these permits for another couple years, just in case there's some unforeseen delay, but there would be significant harm if the extension isn't granted and we ran out of time for some reason. In that case, we'd have to go through the process again, redesign the project, spend a lot of money that's just wasted money on getting there again, and there'd be a delay in providing housing to the community. The developer is working diligently. They're active right now on getting this project designed and constructed. The project's consistent with the general plan and zoning for this area and will provide much needed housing. The comments provided to the commission, we believe, have already been addressed by the conditions of approval and through the city oversight process through Plan Check. So therefore, we respectfully request that the commission approve our request for an extension on these permits. The applicant, Amit Haller, is also here if you have any questions directly of the applicant. Or if you have any questions of me, I'm here as well.
Great, thank you, Chris. While Chris is available, does anyone have any clarifying questions for him specifically? Commissioner Cannesty?
Yeah, Chris, I want to just confirm the timeliness of this extension. So it's my understanding that the original expiration date was in May 12, 2025, and AB 2729 grants an 18-month extension, which would then mean that you have approval till November 12, 2026. So yes. Under my estimation, this request is timely, correct?
Yeah, and there's an interesting interplay between the state law and the city code, because the city code does state that an applicant's supposed to apply for an extension within 1 year of the approval. However, AB 2729 tacks on 18 months to any ordinance or regulation dealing with the implementation of applicable housing projects. So our legal analysis is it did kick out the date for extension until I think November 12th, 2025, which we applied before that date.
And second question, last question, granting an extension, it doesn't modify or reopen any previously approved conditions or environmental findings. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay. So you're just answering the questions because you're trying to be nice.
Well, I think it's a question for staff more.
Yeah.
And our attorney's not here, but I think Lisa has conferred with the
I'm sorry, I
attorney.
did not introduce properly. Our attorney is not here because Greg Rubens has a conflict of interest. He lives within 500 feet of the site. But we do have special outside legal counsel, Anna Shimko. She's available virtually, and she would be happy to answer I think you had 2 questions?
Yeah.
Just to confirm those, so.
Yeah, I just want to confirm that the request is timely. And second, that this request doesn't open or modify anything that was previously approved.
Okay, I could say yes to the second, but Anna, would you like to answer both of those, please?
Yes.
I'd be happy to. Thank you. Yes, it's staff's position that the request is timely, essentially based on the same reasoning that Lisa gave earlier and that Chris just articulated. There is a 1-year period in the code. However, that corresponds to your default 1-year period for a permit to begin with. You granted 2 years to begin with. It ended up being 3.5. So there is a considerable amount of time, about a year left on the permit. So they remain active and able to be extended. And now I don't recall the second question, but I know that Lisa already answered it and I agreed with her.
Okay. Thank you. That's very helpful. Thanks.
Sure.
Great. I had a couple more clarifying questions for the attorney while Anna's talking, if that's okay. Thanks for being here, Anna. My questions immediately were twofold. One, our Muni Code has no findings called out to make for extensions. And I know that state law is pretty clear about what are appropriate reasons that bodies like us can reject housing rather than approve. It's more of you have to prove that there's a reason that you can reject it. I wanted to hear your thought about what are the findings that we should be thinking through? Is that what we deem, kind of just generally appropriate, or is there or should we be thinking through, really the Housing Accountability Act kind of mindset about we have to come up with some darn good reasons why not to, like health and safety, that's a very clear threat or something like that from change conditions. What is your take on the findings for extensions?
That is an excellent question. In general, the findings for an extension are not specified anywhere. Certainly, as you noted, they're not specified in your code. Your findings do need to be supported by evidence. The types of things that have been discussed here today about whether the developer is making progress, or whether there are any changed circumstances, and so far I have not heard that there are, but whether there are any changed circumstances that would warrant reconsidering or the project or conditioning an extension. And as you noted, there is certainly a very hefty overlay of the Housing Accountability Act. So everything that does have to do with the housing project needs to be looked at with that framework in mind, that you are supposed to act with the goal of promoting and advancing housing, and there is a possibility that a denial of an extension could be viewed by some as a denial of a housing project, exposing the city to potential lawsuits, liability, et cetera. Mm-hmm. So those are absolutely considerations to keep in mind.
Thank you very much. And I wanted just to check one more thing, which is, that was my thought, which is that AB 130 that just passed with the state budget trailer bills and took effect immediately would apply immediately to newly proposed projects and would not require any SEQRA review for something like this project or others that will be coming. Just wanted to hear, because Lisa termed it AB 130 may apply, and I believe it would apply, and just wanted to hear how you would state it.
Certainly, we've done a preliminary analysis just to prepare for this discussion, and the project is the right size. It meets the general plan zoning requirements. There is some so it seems preliminarily like AB 130 would apply. We may need to do some supplemental analysis to look at biology or wetlands to see where it falls if the project were starting over again. So we don't know with 100% certainty that AB 130 would apply. We do know, however, that it could apply, and that if it does, there would be no CEQA review, and thus we would not have the mitigation measures that we currently have imposed on this project.
Thank you for that. And I was trying to write notes really fast as Lisa said them. The CEQA mitigation measures were spring tunnels, I think, tree planting, crosswalk on Alameda, emergency vehicle access across Coronado, also the noise protection from the neighborhoods, bringing the rooftop decks back 150 feet. Lisa, did I miss any others that we think were part of this very comprehensive review that we did before?
Those are probably the more substantial ones, because a lot of the times the mitigation measures kind of restating some other law that's in effect, like, you know, protecting some resources. But I did summarize them a bit in the staff report, and they're also in the code compliance certificate that's attached. And so it starts with mitigation measures, and it's number 87 of the conditions, and it runs through 119. So there's quite a few mitigation measures.
Yeah,
but I tried to point out the more substantial ones.
Yeah, 119 conditions on this one, more than other permits I have seen. Do y'all agree? Yeah. Okay, thank you. I was hoping that that would be helpful to kind of establish how we're thinking through this. And now I will turn back to the commissioners, and then I'll wrap up with a couple of other questions, maybe. Vice Chair, do you have any questions or clarifying comments?
I think with that frame, this question is less important, but I will still ask it for the good of the order. Have any conditions on the site changed such that the underlying EIR reports would require updating? And if yes, would those updates occur through the building permit process?
We're not aware of any conditions on the site that have changed that would require the EIR to be updated. We believe that is still valid. But through the building permit process, there may be some more detailed site conditions that they need to, you know, design the buildings to accommodate, or retaining walls. But those would be more minor, not EIR level.
That makes sense. That's my primary question within the frame that has been set.
Thank you. And just clarifying, those geotechnical reports, I heard you say that they would need to be redone in order to get the building permit.
They're required to prepare a detailed geotechnical report prior to grading permit.
Prior to grading.
And that they need to incorporate any of the recommendations into the design of the project, yes.
And the grading is the key thing here,
That
because
starts
that's what
first.
could, you know, that's what the concern is about dust and erosion.
It also informs, you know, the foundations of the buildings.
Exactly.
And, yes.
Exactly. Thank you, Lisa. Okay, continuing down, Commissioner Anand.
Thank you. I have a few questions. So I understand that we have the AB 130 to be mindful of. I'm going to say a statement which might sound a bit weird, but housing delayed is housing denied. That's what I would look at it with the lens of. And it's been 8 years, and I feel after looking at all the public comments and the history, I believe 2017 was when the permits were issued, and it's been 8 years. And what I think, whatever is stemming from a big part of the comments is trust in the developer. So I would like to use this forum to try to build the trust between the community and the developer, just by, if you could answer a few questions for me. The first one is, which company is the developer? I see 4 names. There's Dragonfly, there is Vive, there is Lennar, there is Noevi. Like, what's going on?
Yeah. So my name is Amit Haller. I'm the manager of the entity that owns this property, which is called Dragonfly Asset C56. So that's the property. This is the actually entity that owns this property, and for that perspective, consider the developer. We bought this land in 2016, actually. And it was a very, very lengthy entitlement and very diligent process, including CEQA itself just lasted about 1.5 to 2 years. Within this time, we took a lot into consideration, the neighbors' comments, the city comments, the environment, and everything else around that, yet trying to deliver housings right to the city as much as we can. 87 units with 10 below market rates on low income. After this very lengthy process, I mean, just to give a little bit of idea about the cost to going through a process like this, the land was purchased around 2006, around $20 million. Since then, we spent another $20 million just in engineering, carrying cost, fees, and everything else in order to make it happen. Received in May 2023 obviously the entitlement approval, and that was the point that we needed to shift into building permits and detailed engineering and such. At the time, the company that was running the construction, the potential construction of this development was VIV. VIV was acquired by its largest shareholder, Lennar. That's where Lennar is involved here. VIV is no longer part of this project, neither Lennar. I'm still the manager of it, and rebuilding the funding for this project for new financiers, new banks that are being involved. That took a little bit of time. 23 and 24 were very tough years to find financing with the very high interest rate. Things are coming back, and we're leveraging this opportunity to bring it back on track. In the past year, we worked very hard to start building the engineering process around this project. I mean, the civil engineers and everything else that are involved, collaboration with the neighbor property, and finally, we are ready to submit. The main reason for this, for the ask for the extension, is to make sure that through this process of building process, we don't run out of time in the middle. I mean, we are still spending hundreds of thousands of dollars a month into this project, again, between carrying cost, engineering cost, and everything else. And we want to make sure that we have the runway in order to complete this project and to be able to hit the ground.
Thank you for the clarification, and I understand it is a very, very hilly lot. So yes, it is going to be a very big time and money sink. So you said by 2023 you received the entitlement. I guess something that will be very helpful will be data, qualitative or quantitative. Like, yes, you're saying a lot of things, but if the community and we can see these are the plans, or this is the firm we signed up with, or like something concrete in front of us so we know there is real movement towards meeting certain goals in the next year or 2 years during the extension, because it's been 8 years, and giving to, like, I guess a lot of people will question, nothing moved in 8, what's going to move in 2? So some sort of, and I'm trying to help here, some sort of data, some sort of concrete information on this is the firm we're working with, this is our timeline, this is the date we're submitting to the city. Like some sort of concrete commitment is going to be very helpful in order to build trust. I can understand if I were living next to that area, I would be worried that what if the whole land is dug up and then they run out of money, and now in the next storm, I'm getting mudslides in my backyard. So that's like, I can empathize with or sympathize with that neighborhood as well. So giving them some sort of confidence will be very, very helpful in building trust for the community as a whole. Yeah, that's what I would like to say. I do have would you?
Yeah, I fully understand and appreciate your comment. Definitely we'll take it into consideration, and we'll share more data.
Thank you. I have a question for probably Lisa. It is regarding the fire safety. I understand that that the fire department determined that the water is adequate, but is the plan to install a fully electric system for the fire safety?
I'm not sure actually pumps initially with the project were required. I need to look back to see. It may have been that when they decided to have the water lines come from Dundee and up from Alameda, that they no longer needed that water pump system. So I kind of need to look back into that. But initially there was going to be pumping with electricity throughout the site. That may not be required anymore. And again, that'll be evaluated closer to the permit time, where the applicant's required to get kind of a pressure test from Cal Water to see what it actually is, and once the fire hydrants are installed as well, to make sure that they meet the required pressure.
As long as we can make a note that if it is determined to be electric pumping, if the pumps can have a backup in case of power failures, I think that would be critical. The other question would be regarding the bond. Can you tell us a little bit more about what this bond is in case the construction doesn't go through and, like I said, the site is dug up and the finances run out or whatever reason? What happens then? Like, how does the city manage
So the
that?
bonding is limited to the grading phase and any public improvements. We do not accept a bond for project completion. So the bonding is just to make sure that grading can be completed to a very safe situation, and there's no runoff, or there's no, like you were saying, threat of a landslide. So that's the purpose of the bond, so that the city could then go in and have somebody else finish the work if needed. And as well with the work in the public right-of-way.
Yes.
But beyond that, we do not take a bond to make sure, the houses are built to completion.
Yeah, my question was regarding safety of the neighborhood. Also, hypothetically, if this happens that, the site is like half built, you have the grading bond, the site is half built, and the project is stalled again. What next? Like, for how long does the half-built project stay there on that site? Like, what happens next?
What do you mean by half-built? Like
let's say
half of the houses are occupied?
No. Let's say the foundation was laid out, grading was done, foundation was laid out, and the project stalled again. What happens what is the procedure? I'm just curious. What happens
until
then?
somebody else picks up the project for completion.
Okay, so then it will be sold or whatever.
Typically, that's correct.
Whatever happens.
Yes.
Okay.
As you indicated, this is some valuable real estate.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, and then can you clarify about the emergency access road to Coronado? I read it in the document, but is it done, or like what is the symbiosis between the Coronado and this property and the emergency access? Can you tell a little bit more?
Yeah, so it was very important for fire department to have two means of access to the site. So as it was originally designed, you would only come in and out of Alameda, like it is today with the one driveway. And so it's very important for the fire department to have multiple means to access for evacuation. It also provides a lot of help for the Coronado neighborhood, giving them a second means, because then they would be able to access through the site. So what the condition requires is that at least there's a emergency access during construction, and that be through Coronado, where we do have an easement that's recorded that gives them the right to build that, regardless of what Vista Del Grande does. And then this developer is required to dedicate their portion as a public road, and it's required to be built to city standards.
And what will be the phase of that? Because we need emergency access even during the construction. So at what point does that get built in the project?
It would be the initial phase during grading. It would be required to be built.
Okay. All right, yeah, I think that completes my long list. Yes, thank you.
Thanks. Commissioner Tapias?
Thank you. Several of my questions have been answered and addressed in the process. They mainly focused on clarification around the timeline, which thank you for the explanation, and thank you, outside counsel, for the reiterating of that explanation. So that I'm satisfied there. I'd only add for the applicant. I'm sorry, I forgot your name. Thank you. I'd only add a little bit of support around what Commissioner Anand mentioned around transparency and maybe communication of timelines. because I do think that you're in that critical phase now of, it sounds like you're making real progress. Every day there are things being kind of ticked off of the list with respect to the engineering plans, the improvement plans, like, et cetera, that the attorney mentioned a little bit. I think somehow communicating what's next and what the timelines are, I think would be, again, to the point, would build trust and transparency, because right now there's just there's something happening there, and there's been a lot happening there, or maybe not much happening there over the last X years. So I think that is important, and that would be my feedback. Otherwise, I'm satisfied with the conversation we've had here, and my questions have been answered. So thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. I had a couple more questions, Amit, actually. So I'm going to give you the space to give the next steps. I heard that Chris said that the civil engineer plans, the drainage, the stormwater, et cetera, were going to be submitted in December, and that the public improvement plans were going to submit in January. Are there any other near-term milestones for 2026 that you are planning on and know, or maybe Chris could speak to?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, so obviously the first phase is to submit, and then we need to see the type of comments we receive and the speed of comments. There are multiple agencies that are responsible for these comments. It's public work, it's building, it's obviously the water district, I mean, in some cases, the fire department, right? I mean, so there's going to be a collection of these comments. And it is our motivation and interest to respond as quick as possible and to receive those permits as quick as possible. We signed up and contracted with a general contractor that can start the development basically as soon as we are ready. So the point that we are receiving the grading permit, we basically within weeks we are going to hit the ground. To be very specific on timeline, it's difficult because I can commit about when we can submit stuff, but since we don't know,
About review, timeline.
how length it's going to be, hopefully that, I really hope that by mid next year, we're going to hit the ground already.
Okay, great.
I don't know if I'm too optimistic, but at least that's what we are shooting for.
You said you're under contract with the general contractor, or you've identified them and will be getting under contract?
I mean, we signed all the contracts in place, ready for to pull in.
Excellent. In my experience, developers that develop and entitle on spec and then sell the lots do not proceed to civil engineering plans, public improvement plans, and all of these other things that actually lead you up to construction. They stop with the entitlements. I don't know if you have any comment about that. That's been my experience.
Yeah, I mean, so a little bit about my experience and our experience. I mean, so specifically in this city, we built several projects, and one of them is actually across the library, 1501 Cherry Street, 34 condos over there with a big basement on Laurel Street, 1402, I believe, 6 townhomes over there, the modern ones. We built quite a lot actually in the Bay Area, not only in San Carlos. San Carlos, it's a city we like a lot. So typically, and almost always, we go all the way to the vertical construction, marketing, etc. That's actually where our expertise is, in the vertical construction, and that's the desire to get there.
Right.
So there's no desire to flip it or to sell it entitled or whatsoever.
Okay. We like San Carlos too. Thank you for saying that. I was going to ask, and maybe this is a Lisa question, so thank you, Amit, for your comments. Lisa, the qualifications of the structural engineers, the civil engineers, the contractors' plans and specs, we don't know those firms, and we are not approving those firms, but can you tell us about how staff review ensures that all the conditions are met?
Sure. So as indicated, once they submit for a building permit, those plans are routed out. Planning gets a set that we're looking at, and what we're going to do is compare them to the plans that were approved by the Planning and Transportation Commission, and we're going to make sure every single condition and mitigation measure has been met before we can approve those plans being start construction. So that's one department. Building does have outside plan checkers that they use that are kind of more experts in the area, and they look at the engineering, the structural, they look at all kinds of exiting and fire code. They look at that as well. Our fire marshal takes a look at the plans, and then oftentimes, Cal Water gets involved for the water lines, PG&E, that may need to be looked at for the city with the sewer line. So there's a lot of different departments. Rucha, do you recall what our kind of committed turnaround time is for first round of comments?
Yeah, it's for building permits, it's usually 3 weeks for this, the scale of project. And then the consecutive rounds are shorter time period. So the first one takes more time and then.
Right. Thanks. Lisa, I had another question also about permit conditions. So, some of the things that we heard in the public comments, people were concerned about, like with grading, with erosion and sediment control, and then regarding the tree replanting and all of that. I saw that permit condition 48 spoke specifically about that there has to be an erosion and sediment control plan before the grading occurs. We talked about the fire access. Are there are other permit conditions on dust containment? Is there anything around construction staging, water runoff that you wanted to highlight?
Sure. So Public Works Engineering will look at the detailed grading plans. They're also going to look at, all of their streetscape plans, even though it's private, they still need to approve and review those because there's a maximum slope for the road, and fire department wants a certain width and turning radius. So we need to verify all of those items. Sidewalks are also required, at least on one side. And then there's times from when you can do grading. So we have grading moratoriums, and it not as big of a deal in the flatlands where you're not going to have a lot of rain situation, but it could apply in this situation. And I think that there's no grading between October and April. Do I have the dates right? October 15th to April?
I think so, yeah, that is correct.
So essentially during the rating season, we don't want to see any grading. And then there's going to be, a lot of stormwater protection is very important, and there could be outside agencies doing inspections, so that's really important to get those right. So you're going to see those, what do they call them, hay swales, put up to make sure that there's no runoff and there's no dirt going into the public right-of-way. They're going to need to sweep the site, make sure it's clean. They're going to have to put something right at the entrance and exit to kind of wash the tires and make sure there's probably some gravel entry when they start the grading. So there's a lot of work that will be going into it.
Right. And again, the number of permit conditions on this, quite a bit more. I would say like 20, 30 more than I was used to seeing on other projects.
Yeah.
I don't know if that's true. It's just my impression. I was like, wow.
The planning conditions,
just the planning, right.
They're not the entirety of the permit conditions.
Right,
so you've got the entirety of the building code. You have everything that engineering is going to want to see, the fire code. So there's a lot more than just this.
Okay. And I'm glad to hear that the 2025 building code will pertain because that's all updated. And
Correct.
Yeah, excellent. I think, well, let me ask a technical question of you, Lisa, then ask Amit one more question, which is, so as we think about an extension, I know there was a worry about like continuous progress. I don't know if that's something that ever gets considered or addressed in the permit conditions, so that during construction, so that once grading starts, that vertical construction will happen within a certain amount of time, or whether vertical construction will continue ongoing. I don't know if there are conditions like that, or if with a permit extension, we would be allowed to amend any permit conditions or add something like that.
The city currently has a length of construction ordinance.
Okay.
And that's pretty much saying once you start, you need to finish. And I think based on this project size, it's 18 months or 2 years? 18 months, thank you.
Oh.
But there's a lot of new changes from state law that are going to affect the building code.
Okay.
And the building official right now has the opportunity to extend, I believe, 180 days you need to stay active. But I believe some new state law may be changing that. And allowing longer timeframes, because the goal is to get construction built and not
Right.
kind of stall out
I mean,
people and
cut it
say,
out.
you're in violation, get out of here,
Yeah,
and,
yeah.
and void out a permit.
You would hate that to happen.
The
Exactly.
goal is to have continuous completion.
Okay.
So I can't answer those details, but generally.
Okay, that's interesting, which plays into my last question for now to Amit. My experience with townhome projects is that disbursements from the financier come in stages, and so you might build 1, 2, or 3 of the attached blocks, if you will, before they fund you the next ones. Is that going to be the arrangement? And so in that way, hopefully you wouldn't start a bunch of things and then I'll have all, framing, and then for some reason the funding might stop. Which it would be very unusual, by the way, but that there would be blocks that would be kind of completed and then and potentially marketed, and then others that would continue to be. Is that what your funder would require, or what you might enter into?
That's correct. I mean, and it's not necessarily a bad thing. So it's actually guaranteed the completion of the project more than anything else, right? I mean, so you don't overbuild and get stuck in the middle of some of this construction. Furthermore, the plan, and again, it's all subject to part of the reviews that we are going to receive from the city, is to try to phase it in a way that obviously, first and for all, we are going to satisfy all the safety-related issues, the fire land, the fire road, and such, and the relevant grading. But then the idea is to build it bottom up. I mean, from the Alameda side, to build a couple of sections at a time. And as they are being sold, we're actually getting the next phase of the financing. And I want to add something about financing, and we spoke a lot here about bonds, which are definitely important. But the lenders are not less worried than the public, right? I mean, they want to get paid and those loans to get paid. So the amount of due diligence that lenders are doing, including on the consultant and the ability of everyone, is enormous. And the lenders have their own ability. If project gets stuck, actually, they probably would be the first one to take over the project, hire new general contractors, and to bring it to completion. So there is really a big alignment of motivations from the different parties. And, God forbid, there's always disasters could happen, and COVID and stuff like that. But hopefully it's all behind us. So all the participators have alignment of motivation. They do their own due diligence, and I think that we are on a very good path to bring it to completion.
And then you said the couple of sections at a time starting at Alameda. I'm remembering that there are some BMR units in some of those lower sections. Is that right? So that they would be kind of front-loaded in the project, some of them, if that's the case.
I don't recall it exactly at the top of my head, but the BMR units are very well distributed within those units, right?
Yes.
I mean,
Yes, they are.
so actually they do
But there
go
were
up as
some in
well,
the
because
near-
we didn't want to discriminate any one of the BMR
Exactly.
with the views and such like
Thank
that.
you.
So they are distributed very well.
Yes.
You're welcome, but I think
No,
the
but
city,
thank you for understanding that that is a thing, and it's kind of
And
a
I think-
fair housing law thing. Thank you for.
And I think that there is
Why?
really, again, speaking about affordability here, 10 units of, on average, 2,500 square feet, 4 bedrooms, with the beautiful views. This is a huge contribution to the city and for people which serve us here and need to live here and cannot afford it. I mean, so we are really excited about that.
Yeah,
And
I
they're
am
well
too.
distributed. Almost every cluster is its own
Yeah,
unit.
I am too. And the fact that they're all at low income rather than moderate income is better than a lot of projects or cities would have. So thank you, Amit. Okay, those are all the questions that I have. Thank you. Any other final questions before we go to public comments? Okay. So with that, let's open up public comment for item 8A, which is 808 Alameda de las Pulgas. So for those of you online who are interested, please get in queue and raise your hands on the Zoom meeting. I'll say that first. We do have one speaker card here in Chambers. If anyone else would like to make a comment, please fill out a speaker card and you can approach. But we're going to get the people on Zoom also ready to make a comment. The Zoom information is on the screen, but I will say it out loud. You can either call on the phone, 669-900-9128, and then you enter the meeting number for Zoom, which is 886-3546-7439. I'm going to say this in my dreams pretty soon. I'm almost memorizing the meeting number. If you're on the phone, you can hit *9 to raise your hand. If you are in the Zoom meeting, you click on reactions and then the raise hand icon. And so anyone making public comment has 2 minutes to speak. So Zinovi, is he still here? No, he left, but had wanted to make a public comment, so maybe he'll email it in. But so with that, Lynette, are there any hands raised on Zoom to make a public comment on item 8A?
There is one hand raised. Caller ending AOL.com.
Excellent. Caller, please identify yourself and then go ahead. You have 2 minutes. Welcome.
Thank you. This is Debbie Baldacchi. I live in San Carlos and submitted the majority of, I think, the public comments. Thanks to all the planning developers who asked questions based on our letters. I think most of our questions were answered. And I think Commissioner Anand really hit on the main point, which is the trust with the developer. I heard a lot of what Mr. Holler said. However, he raised $600 million with VEEV, and that startup failed. He also was associated with Reali, R-E-A-L-I, another startup, and that failed. So it's very concerning to think that the funding is going to be dependent on lenders as he completes sections of this development. As you all know from the plans, it is very, very steep and starting at the bottom, building up. You've seen atmospheric rivers in San Carlos. We live on the creek. The creek is flooded. All that water runs downhill and into the creek. So it's very concerning, just the uncertainty with regard to financing and this developer's history with the city. Some projects have been completed that he mentioned, others have not, and some local people have not been made whole or paid for contracts they entered into when they sold their properties. So we do want to keep all the CEQA recommendations. We don't want to lose the benefit of those mitigations. So thank you very much, Lisa. Thank you very much, commissioners, for asking these questions. We know that you're keeping a good eye on the project, and we greatly appreciate your efforts. Thank you.
Debbie, thank you so much. Thank you for your involvement and your kind comments. Are there any other hands raised on Zoom, Lynette?
There are no more.
Okay. We'll just wait for another 30 seconds or so in case someone on Zoom changes their mind and would like to give us their thoughts. Any last call for hands on Zoom? Anyone in there?
There are none.
Okay, thank you. Then I need a motion to close public comment on item 8A.
I move to close public comment on item 8A.
Thank you. Second?
My second?
Great. Richa?
Chair Clements,
Yes.
Vice Chair Bundy,
Yes.
Commissioner Anand,
Yes.
Commissioner Kaniasti,
Yes.
and Commissioner Tapias.
Yes.
Thank you. That was a great discussion and a lot of important information conveyed by staff. Thank you, by our attorney, by the applicant. So thank you for all of that. So let's go to commissioner comments now and final thoughts. Maybe we'll start down here. Commissioner Tapias?
Sure. Thank you. And thank you to everyone for all the work in summarizing all this information and taking in public comments and kind of clearing up with facts and specifics, so I appreciate that. For me, just maybe 3 points. For me, I really appreciated the clarity around outlining how the request falls within the appropriate timelines and clarifying kind of any misconceptions around dates and timelines. So appreciate that and understood that this falls within. For me, it's a positive sign that the project still falls within all the CEQA mitigation measures that they all apply here, even with the extension of that proposed extension of the timeline. And lastly, I take comfort that all of the permitting would still, we still have all of the permitting and approvals to go to make sure that the project complies with both safety, building, and other guidelines in order to address some of the public's issues that have been raised. I think a lot of that will work itself out through that permitting and approvals process. So important for us to keep in mind there. And lastly, I appreciate the applicant pointing out the alignment of motivation around the financing and around the construction completion. I hear that and I acknowledge that. I'm glad you brought that up. Thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Anand?
Thank you, everyone available here, as well as the community for meaningfully contributing to the discussion for this project. Before I give my comments, I have a question which I'm going to start a little bit dramatic, and this is for Lisa and the city staff. So let's say the project stalls during grading. The grading started, the ground broke, and it went on to some way, and then the project has not happened for the last 3 months. We ran into January, the storms are here. At what point does the city determine that the bond is in motion and that the city needs to take care of the safety of the neighborhood?
I'm not the Public Works Director, city engineer, but they would definitely react before the storms. So as I indicated, we have a grading moratorium. They need to make sure that site is safe and weather tight before October 10th, 15th, in that range, sometime in October. So they want to make sure it's weatherproof and it's safe at that time. And then they can start construction again the following spring. If you're saying construction's abandoned, they would make sure they got in there before the wet season happened to make sure the site is safe and essentially weatherproof.
Great, thank you. So in terms of comments, I think I appreciate the public's concerns that were raised from the neighborhood. I think overall, I would just sum it up that everything is here. I appreciate the city staff pointing out the CEQA requirements as well as the considerations under AB 130. However, there's one missing piece for me here, which is trust and accountability both. Again, I will reiterate that 7 years have gone by, 2 more years, what's going to change? So then if we can see those changes, to build that trust, also certain amount of accountability in terms of here are the timelines, this is when I will meet this milestone from our side. Of course, there are lots of things that are city permits, approvals, comments, all of that, we understand that, but even taking that into account, what will be the action from the developer side, just a concrete timeline on that, as well as what has happened so far, what has been lined up, will help a lot in building trust and safety, because we don't want to see that another 5 years, hypothetically, another 5 years have passed when in the 2 years prior, another developer could have just built the 87 housing units and helped us with the AB 130. So that's my only comment here. Otherwise, thank you everyone for bearing with all our questions.
Thank you, Commissioner. Vice Chair?
Sure, so thanks so much for everyone's hard work and for the community members for your comments. So the scope of the action today before us is the extension. Based on council's analysis, the extension is considered timely. And I think with regard to the other public comments related to the fire code and fire safety, bonding, design details, wetlands protection, although those are outside the scope of the extension, staff, thank you for taking the time to address those questions. And again, the entitlement process and the grading and building and permit process will further mitigate and understand construction phase risks. I do think it would be helpful if the developer could provide ongoing community updates, a website, mailing list, something like that, just to keep folks up to speed. Instagram, Nextdoor seems to be where people go. And just kind of regarding the AB 130 stuff, I think this is a project where CEQA is an incredibly important tool for us for projects of this scale located in high fire hazard, high geologic hazard zones, areas of biological sensitivity. And the EIR process allows us to understand those impacts and to put forward mitigation measures to shape these projects that we do value as a community in ways that are protective not only of our broader community but of the development itself. So I would hope that in the future projects of this scale, we don't just automatically assume that that applies when there are these significant hazards and potential impacts. I think that the mitigation measures are reasonable. I hope the developer feels so as well. So it's not that we're, stalling development by mitigating these impacts. So that's kind of a broader statement than just this one. But I'm supportive of the extension.
Thank you, Vice Chair. Commissioner Canesti?
Yes, Lisa, I want to thank you and the staff for putting together that package and the developer your presentation, and I appreciate that. And the chair's comment about findings, I think, was very applicable. I think, based on what I heard, the findings I would make was that the request was timely. It's authorized by the municipal code. It does not require any further SEQA review. It doesn't modify the project or conditions, and it continues to serve the public interest by advancing improved housing projects while ensuring all the safety and mitigation requirements may be fully enforceable. So again, I think this project, it also provides BMR units. I think we got presentations from the developer that they have a financial motivation to continue. So based on those findings, I think I would move to approve.
Thank you. I will daylight that I supported this approval when it came before the commission in 2023. I continue to support the approval. It sounds like the developer is proceeding to construction, and I really appreciate all of the additional information presented here. Also, staff's good work and our attorney's thoughts about, what is the proper lane for the commission to be in as we consider an extension like this. The project itself, there's a significant number of new homes, and 87, and there are also 5 acres of open space. There are going to be public access and walking trails throughout the entire development, plus the 10 BMR homes to be sold, 4 bedrooms sold to low-income families. That is an incredible asset in today's housing market. It's an important contribution to the city's RHNA goal. If there were grounds to not extend the permit would likely increase the project cost further. As we heard, it's hundreds of thousands of dollars ongoing just to carry the cost of the land and then continue to conduct all of the studies. Which, the market sets the price for housing, but that could very well push up the housing prices as well. Also, a significant delay of needed housing in our community is not what we're trying to drive to. We're trying to drive to the opposite, ready supply. So I think this is an improvement on the previous proposal. I think it's an improvement on the current conditions for the site, absolutely. As we heard, it's actually going to be, more fire resistant than it is today. So that's exciting. And of course, I'm supportive of housing production as long as it is safe and that it is thoughtful and is compliant with all of our conditions. And the information we've heard today indicates that that will continue to be the case. And there are so many permit conditions and so much control by staff on the technical aspects of it. I'm not concerned about this challenging site, even though it is challenging. Again, this is a project of importance. It's a large site. It's a site that the community had considered putting a community asset on. So a lot of people are very engaged in this. And again, I want to thank everyone who's been commenting on this and thinking through how this will affect our community, because I think that's the right thing to think through. But the findings to be made, I also concur, as Commissioner Canesti said, this is a timely request. State law sits on top of local law when it passes, and so I absolutely think that the timeline is being conceived of the right way. We know that if a proposal that was new came forward today without having CEQA to rely upon, this would be a superior project, I think. And again, I don't see any rationale for disapproval of the permit extension. There is no evidence presented of really changed conditions that would make us seriously concerned and would rise to the level of the Housing Accountability Act as to why we had any right to disapprove the housing. And so, again, I'll be voting in support to extend the permit, and I'm glad and hopeful to see this proceeding in the near term. So thank you for all the information tonight. Great job by staff, I want to say. Thank you, Lisa. So with that, I think it is time for a motion, if somebody would like to make the motion. And if we could, yeah, there it is, back on the screen.
I'll make the motion. Yeah. I move that the Planning and Transportation Commission adopt the resolution granting a 2-year extension of the approved entitlements for the 808 Alameda de la Pulgas townhome development.
And I'd like to second that motion. Roll call.
Chair Clements?
Yes.
Vice Chair Pandey?
Yes.
Commissioner Anand?
Conditional yes, is that a thing?
That's not a thing.
Because like this is the first time. I like in absence of data and certain assurance milestones, which I would really like to see as a condition of yes, I'm very inclined to vote a yes at this point, but can we make a note that, can we get a commitment of that you will be delivering some sort of data or timelines by in the next month, 2 months, something? Can that be done?
Just procedurally, would we want to change the motion? So you've created a substitute motion, if you will, which now can be discussed if we'd like to discuss that.
Okay.
To amend the motion to add that request of the developer to daylight some public milestones or milestones to the public. So, okay, well, so let's do this the right way. On that substitute motion or a motion to amend, a friendly amendment to the basic motion, is the maker of the motion amenable to that change?
I'm not sure. Yeah, I'm just procedurally, it might throw a wrench into the process. I don't know if it's within our jurisdiction really to do that. I'm concerned about that. I do agree with her concern,
yes,
for sure, and maybe we could get, a verbal assurance, but to put it in the motion, I think procedurally it could invite some
yes,
legal challenges.
Okay, so the maker of the motion declines to amend the motion, but I think your comment and the desire for that public-facing information ongoing for this project of importance has been noted. And so we would hope that the developer would comply with that. Thank you. So with that, what is your vote then?
I trust you all. Yes.
Okay, great. Continue roll call.
Commissioner Canisti?
Yes.
Commissioner Tabby, yes.
Yes.
And that is it, 5-0. And your note and your comments duly noted, just not in the motion. Yes. Thank you all. I will read this. The Planning and Transportation Commission's action will be final unless it is appealed to the City Council within 10 days of the date of this action. So therefore, the deadline to file an appeal is 5 p.m. on Thursday, November 27th, 2025. Lisa had a comment? Oh, it is Thanksgiving. And so would it have to be the business day before or after? After. Okay. After. And so... Is that the 1st? It sure is, December 1st. The deadline to file an appeal is 5 p.m. on Monday, December 1st, 2025, due to the Thanksgiving holiday. Thank you, Lisa. Okay, great. Thank you all. Thank you. Appreciate it. Congratulations. We're on to item 8, reports, correspondence. Sure. Thank you for providing information on this project. We appreciate that. Ongoing. Thank you. Item 8A, any report on recent city council actions, Richa?
Yes, there is one. On November 10th, City Council meeting, Council approved Downtown Plan implementation Phase 1 for the Harrington Park project. So,
Excellent. Tell me the date again. Is that when you were saying that?
November 10th, City
November
Council
10th.
meeting? Yeah.
Okay. Excellent, and they approved. Thank you.
That's it.
Can
for
you just remind everybody when the downtown-specific plan will be coming before the council?
That will be November 24th.
November 24th.
Yes.
That, yeah,
Let me
not
check
Thanksgiving. Okay.
No.
The week of Thanksgiving, earlier. Okay, that week.
Yes,
Thank you.
that's, November 24th.
Okay,
Monday.
great. Thank you. Item 8B, Planning and Transportation Commission comments or reports? Any? Okay. Item C, any correspondence other than for this item, which we received paper at the dais and email as well? Any other correspondence, Richa?
None at this point.
Okay, thank you. Item D, any planning staff comments, reports, and updates on current projects?
None for current projects, but just wanted to give you an update about the next meeting. That's December 1st, Monday. We do not have any items scheduled at this point, so most likely that meeting could get canceled, but we'll keep you updated. And then for the following meeting, which will be our last meeting for December, that is December 15th, we have 2 items scheduled, so that meeting will still be conducted.
Okay. And when folks were judging the quorum, were we going to have a full 5 members for that meeting? Do we know?
Yes, we did get 5
Okay, great.
confirmations for that.
Excellent. Right before the travel hits. Thank you.
And that's it from staff.
Thanks, Richa. And we're glad you're here tonight. Thank you for covering the meeting.
Thank you.
And with that, the meeting is adjourned. Thank you all. Have a good night.
Thank you.